I'm going to try to be provocative today. I seem to have a history of that. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a story about kind of my journey that got me here. So 2004, I was a computer scientist. I'd been in academia, I'd been in industry, I had young kids, and I freaked out about climate. And, at 3 in the morning, I'd wake up and I couldn't sleep. I wasn't at that, at work, I was thinking about work. But at 3 in the morning, when I woke up, I was thinking about where the world was heading and what it was going to be like for my kids and your entire generation around the world. So I decided to change careers, which was terrifying. I didn't go back to school. My wife had just gone back to school and changed careers, and that inspired me to think I could actually change careers. So I changed careers, and I was lucky enough to land a job at Google, as their green energy czar. And it was the field was wide open. It was figure out what we're going to do about climate. We want to do something good. And I spent a few years there. Then I moved to Facebook, similar role. We did lots of good stuff at both places. We bought clean energy. We invested in clean energy. We used our buying power in the marketplace and our economic development leverage to get green tariffs in place so that we could buy renewable energy, and others could too, in places where up to then you couldn't. It was great. And I feel really proud about the work that we did and that all my colleagues did at both places and at the many companies we collaborated with. And in my personal life, I vote. I think like many of you, I care about climate. I vote because I think that matters. I drive an EV. We have solar in our house. I recycle. I compost. I take transit. I walk. I used to bike, not so much these days. In San Francisco, that's always fun. There are these things called hills. And so here we are. And it's 2020, and I am even more freaked out about climate. And I think that's maybe why a lot of you are here today, is you're a little freaked out. And people often say, don't do the doom and gloom, don't make people scared. It's like, well, fear is a good motivator, not if you sink into it, but just the rosy vision of we'll make a lot of money in the future doesn't seem to be motivating people to move fast enough. The urgency comes from the fact that if we don't, as Bruno said earlier, the risks are huge. And I like to joke that I'm more freaked out now than I was then because I can read and I can do math. I'm not Andrew Yang, but I can do math. So emissions are still rising. The world is burning. We're at 1.1 degrees of warming already. We need to stay below 1.5 if at all possible. This is kind of scary. Now, you folks are here at Climate Cap because I assume you care about climate. You're going to enter a new job or a new career or maybe go back to an old job. You may not know this, and I didn't know this until someone cited the numbers, like, wow, that's a big number. In your life, you'll spend 80 to 90,000 hours at work, right? Or more. I mean, a lot of people, if they work 12-hour days for years and years and years and weekends, it's more like 120,000 hours. That's a lot of time. That is arguably the biggest and most important investment you will make in your life, unless you have a trust fund. And I didn't have one of those. So the question is, and people talk about divest, invest, that's great, please, yes. Focus your financial investments on the things that will create the future we want to have. But you're about to invest an enormous amount of your life into a career. The question is, how are you going to invest it? Is it going to be in something that is as good as possible for the climate? In something that's kind of, meh? Or, I hope not, something that's really bad for the climate? So, let me say one more thing. So some of you may be planning to go into clean tech or work for an NGO or go work in politics and policy or in some other way directly contribute to climate solutions. which is great, but many of you won't have that opportunity. You just, those jobs are not everywhere. And even if you're doing that and doing all the things you can in your personal life, you may be thinking, it's not enough, right? I look at what's happening in the world, and we're all recycling, and we're all buying clean energy, and we're not driving, or we're driving EVs and putting solar on, and still emissions are rising. So I'm doing what I can, it's not enough. And by itself, you'd be right, that individual action by itself isn't enough. So what do we need? You hear a lot about moonshots and breakthroughs and finance and investment, voluntary action by companies and individuals. Most of the last 15 years of my life has been about all of those things. At Google and Facebook, I ended up at least dabbling in all of that and really focused on quite a bit of it. And we need more of that, absolutely. And as Bruno mentioned, yesterday we heard we got to decarbonize 100% by 2050. And if we want to have a decent chance of staying below 1.5 degrees of warming, we have to decarbonize 50% by 2030. 2050, it's not that far away, but it's 30 years. You can do a lot in 30 years. 10 years cutting emissions in half. That, to me, that really kind of focuses the mind. And to do that, to decarbonize that fast, it's not just about innovation. It's not just about sort of voluntary actions by a bunch of us and a bunch of companies. It's not just about banks voluntarily saying, we're going to do some green bonds and put our money over here. We need, in addition, to really turbocharge all of that, we need public policy. So I like to think of this as the improv approach to climate. Yes, and. I have never done any acting. I've never done improv. I'm terrified of that. Okay. But yes, we need innovation. Yes, and we need finance. Yes, and we need voluntary action. And to really turbocharge all that, to make it happen at the speed and scale we need public policy. Policy, and by that I mean public policy. Not just the policies that companies have that say, we're going to buy clean energy and we'll be at 100% clean energy by date X. That's vital. And we need public policy to scale that economy-wide. So most of the American public, like 70%, according to polls, and the vast majority of people around the world, believe we need to move a lot faster on climate and that governments have a really big role to play. And that we need policy. And that doesn't necessarily mean government investment. It could mean a price on carbon. It could mean clean energy mandates. It could mean clean vehicle mandates. It could mean building codes. Lots of policies that can drive us where we need to go that don't mean government just owns everything and does it. So I think businesses and markets have a huge role to play. Most people believe we need that, yet we're not getting those policies. And policy should be the reflection of our collective will or the implementation of our collective will. In climate, it clearly isn't. And why not? Well, on one side, you have very powerful, invested, let's call them special interests, who are doing their damnedest to keep those policies from happening. That's the fossil fuel companies, who exert enormous influence every day. And on the other side, you've got most of us, maybe all of us, you've got the emerging youth movement, you've got NGOs, and lots and lots, millions of individuals who are at 3 a.m. with their eyes wide open going, holy shit, right? Who have a lot of passion, but don't have the political influence. And the question that I've been asking for the last couple of years is, who's missing from this game? Where are the missing pieces that could be helping that poor little lonely pawn actually do something? And the answer is, it's companies, all the other companies who are not fighting so hard to stop progress. And this is something that has happened before. If you look at the state-level fights over LGBT rights, and federal level for that matter, in the last decade, we had a lot of companies step up to speak out for marriage equality at the state level and the federal level against the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana and a bunch of other states, against the bathroom bills in North Carolina and other places. And they moved from being bystanders, where they were saying, we're good people, we don't discriminate, to being upstanders, saying we are strong advocates for equality and against discrimination. And we're beginning to see companies move on climate. We saw a lot of employee activism at Amazon recently, which has really moved the company, and at some others. We need to create the same movement with companies on climate, to go from being bystanders, we're good people, we don't pollute, which is awesome and has been amazing leadership, to being real upstanders. We are advocates against pollution and for climate solutions. So this happened with LGBT rights, and guess what made most of those companies make that leap from where they were not discriminating to being advocates? Employees and students. So people like you. And it's really important to remember companies, they represent us. They have a voice, they use it or choose not to. But the power of their voice depends on their customers, their employees, their shareholders. And we have an opportunity to make them represent us in a way that aligns with our values and the future we want to have. So that is why we are launching ClimateVoice today, right here. And I'm really appreciative for the opportunity to be here and to do this. It's been a hair-raising few months actually getting this to launch. We want to mobilize the voices of thousands, someday maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of students and employees to tell companies that now is the time to go all in on climate in their operations and supply chain and products, but especially in politics and legislation and public policy. And this movement starts with a pledge. You take the pledge, you sign the pledge, say, I will prioritize where I work based on whether they are all in or how far in they are. I will vocalize, I will speak up about this. And then I will mobilize. We'll work together with other people to create a very loud voice, and I will recruit others to the cause. And then it continues with action. So, speaking up, yelling, that's great, that's important. But then we need to act. And we're going to do that through a series of focused campaigns, each focused on a single issue. And we're going to encourage all the companies that have influence on that issue to speak up and get as many voices focused behind that issue and onto the focus at those companies as possible. And there's actually one here in Virginia right now. There's a bill called the Virginia Clean Economy Act, mandates 100% clean energy on the grid by 2050. Big shift for the state. And we need more companies to support it. It's almost done. The two houses have to reconcile bills they pass, and that has to go to the governor. But it's not quite done. 8 companies have actually spoken up in favor of it. And we should thank them. A lot of companies, when they contemplate speaking up on a bill, it doesn't do them any good. Nobody really publicly thanks them. And we should put the companies that haven't spoken up on notice that what we expect them to speak up in the future, and we'll be watching. One final comment before I finish, and I know I'm slightly over time. One sort of aha moment for me was when I realized I'm sitting in Menlo Park at Facebook's headquarters, and we had a big facility in North Carolina, and the bathroom bill was being debated, and we were debating, does Facebook take a stand? How strong a stand does Facebook take? I didn't live in North Carolina. I couldn't vote in North Carolina. The company I worked for had real influence in North Carolina. And I and many other employees were able to influence what they did. So we need climate action and climate policy everywhere. And wherever you work, if your company has a presence somewhere where there's an important bill, you can influence your company to speak up there. And you're a student anywhere, if there's a company that might want to hire you that has a presence in a given state or region or country, you can pressure them to speak up. So it's not just about you live in Virginia, you should care about a bill in Virginia. It's about climate's a global problem. We need solutions everywhere, including policy. And you can affect that. To me, that was like, wow, that's powerful. So we're launching ClimateVoice today. You guys are at the birth. Hopefully this gets really big. Go to climatevoice.org, take the pledge, go all in on climate. You can hold up your phone and hopefully that QR code works. Technology sometimes. We have buttons, we have stickers, We have a poster you can sign. Please sign online to sign the pledge, but also if you want, sign the poster, but we need your signature online to really collect it. Thank you.